Odofo memo akwaba na masa de wase eba Snap News TV so. And any day kan a wo hwe ya wodom ye na wa subscribe na wa share video no. Wo hwe abranti ya na se wahene ya wo se ya. Ni din di eze chukudi ina henatu. Ya se wo se wo ye Igbo hene. Na akwa no atimya je aya bewura Ghana ye chieftaincy ayinim ama sese Ga Mantse anase ga ahemfofo ama no nsase ya chese nkranfo ndoma gina tumu ankasa na de wo ye na sebi otafrache e wose Ghana fo nyina ate na esan ye hu na eye national security threat to yankasa ye ho ne se waji 50 acres of land ewo prampram wo baabi it allegedly no yes waji 50 acres of land ewo prampram wo baabi ya ose opese osi ne palace na palace na wo si nyese palace keke wo si as Igbo community ene hospital wo ho school wo ho police station wo ho fire service bibia chese Igbo ena wo si no chese wo mo beje kuro na aboso ankasa na enye no nko anso so allegedly ne yese wo ahemfo no ewo chese Ghana ye 16 regions no o ahemfo no bebri ewo baabia regions no na plans awaye ene de waye ne se ahemfofo na wo wase no na chese we na beda ne paramount chief no a chese wono susu si hene ene me kire mu video bi kura no wosi Captain Smart so hene minima hene nko a wode ma anase position wode ma Captain Smart ewo Igbo honom na audio bi susu apie a mo kan ho asem mebo audio no susu asa ma mati na yenkoi de ntie wosisi ahemfofo no na ahemfofo na wosisi no susu no eno susu allegedly ne yeso woton sase ene asase no susu oba no obedi ano a sika save time no de atam no de amount just we build the community across the nation na yeso wataye festival bi yam festival watadi in September and odi in September no susu a wokra Igbo fo omo Nigeria alatamam emo ba Ghana ha ene yesi nyan ene nantwie no akumbia mono so no asi omo no mo de bosom sem ni nyina ba ha se de akwa ne ye ne de chese woje Ghana kuro no aboso na ehu pa yie pa se yete ye kurom ne yete ye mam na wutimi ba na abeji asase yantam se bi otafrache nya wa ye ka na se 2 plot bi mihu ya na ko hoho de nka aba waba na nka waja oba wobedi pa na se bibisa omogbotwe bi na nka apɛ na nka ato na so we de osi community na chese wode ne ho ba be Ghana ya hinsem yankase yete kurom ankasa na ya hinsem no yehu de ekoso na minim sika pudu a watem ma Captain Smart ya munim se Captain Smart ade we so ye national security threat to yankasa ye Ghana for na watimi akone asi wo hene wo honom ene mo behwe a yesi 2022 o ya na dwe se oba be si obey festival bi ene yesi former defense minister Canada pa eye de ka se da bi de wo ye ne de sebiota frache wani ya tre wani nton enti amaso wo de yenko na yenkotie audio no kakra emfa free mamufo ho ye ba na mano chuku ekwezi ase hwan no na agenda enti opeso obeje Ghana no odi Ghana no ema Igbofo no ye ba ye de ne nyina so be den ebesom bedase
good afternoon, say morning, say evening. My name baby a part I was say, but story be what I'm person. My name say be a what's ya, but me so me catch now na. More online I'm to make kasa more audience no. Na mo be an fana nuntum. Guy be onam Ghana ha oba ha che ba me meten nka che o so ye Igbo hene. Odidi mo awakra ha. The mama, you say, Ga Traditional Council, Omo de Naka, Oma Gazette, or Ga Traditional Council. Ama, Wakota Sasso, Pram, Nancy Akota Sasse. Bear almost 50 acres, so no OC Palace. No, I Igbo community war. Omo school. Omo school, and your friend hospital so mbe bibi are different say no Ghana no common ka ho every year be a festival bi 2022 no mete say yama kandapa estopo no say oyama or the Biafra organize Biafra for no wa akoko Nigeria say bibisa na waye no so yo so no yo hene but in the picture be ma I think say bia onim dada waye no so no a king of Igbos in Ghana ama every year bia say odi sa yam festival na odi ni September this year is also be odi a invite nkrofo fi Nigeria mo ba mo be yo mo abosom niema kwati ase abosom de mini problem but sɛ wode obosom bi fi baabi abɛkum mmoa nwan ne adeɛ obi asase so wɔ Ghana ha deɛ ɛnyɛ cause Ghana obi ani wɔ baakɔ yɛ saa de no obɛkum na ɔyɛ no every year na ade ɔyɛ ne sɛ ɔsan si sub chiefs wasi sub chiefs nti ɔwɔ hɔ no ɔwɔ ahemfo wɔ n'ase nti ɔno wayɛ ne ho sɛ ɔyɛ paramount chief na wasi ahemfo wɔ n'ase a mefa sɛ every region biara wasi hene wɔ hɔ yɛsi ano ade ɔpɛ sɛ ɔyɛ ne sɛ wato 50 acres wɔ ano pɛ sɛ ahemfo na ɛwɔ da regions ni na ɔbɛtotɔ asase ne saa akɛse ama no ɔma form Igbo community wate ase nti no bibia ade ɔmpɛ sɛ ɔmo yɛ ne sɛ ɔmpɛ sɛ ɔmo take over the country because ɔmo no ɔmo sɛ ɔmo kurom wɔ no problems ɛwɔ hɔ ne adeɛ no nti ɔmpɛ sɛ ɔmo move ɔmo Igbofoɔ no nyinaa mmra Ghana ha anaasɛ bi a majority no koraa mmra Ghana ha na ɔhwɛ ɔmo population na ɔhwɛ yɛ population a asɛm bɛn na ebesi daakye ɛde ntɔkwa ne ade na ɛbɛba na yɛsɛ mehwɛ mɛka akyerɛ nti mɛde ne picture bɛsɛn no
okay etipadi wei asɛm wɔ ka kyerɛ me no wɔn sɛ wɔ kasa no wɔse ɔpɛ sɛ media houses no eni kwan sɛ yɛyɛ din
ɛne wotie audio na de ɔdɔfoɔ no ɛsrɛ no no na wasɛm a wokan wo se mediafoɔ yɛmmoa na deɛ ɛkɔ so na nka yɛmmoa na nso so yɛbɛboa no nso so no yɛ captain ne nyinaa nso so na sese yɛsi ne hene a yɛ captain smart ya sese no Igbofoɔ yɛ akɔsi ne hene sese asɛm bɛn na ɔbɛka ana ɛdɛ na ɔbɛyɛ na allegedly no yɛsɛ wawale Ghana ni a kyɛ sɛ ɔne Ghana ni na ɛteɛ no kwa de nkɛnyɛ hwee sɛ Ghana yɛ motherland na yɛnkɔ asɛ ne ho yie pa mo de mo yɛnkɔ na yɛnkɔ tie foforɔ bi nso so emfiri yɛnua bi hɔ yɛba na deɛ ɔhɔ bi asoso na yɛsan de asomo na mesa bɔnka sɛ wo subscribe ya na wa subscribe wo share video no nso a na wa share video no ahanom Snap News TV nyabrɛ na tie ne yɛntie ne nyina mɛda ase nso em
creeping up in Ghana, and every well-meaning Ghanaian will have to sit up and grant me your attention for just a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. A man born in Nigeria who settled in Ghana some decades ago and over time became well-respected leader among his tribesmen has now set up a kingdom for himself in our country, ladies and gentlemen. He is an Igbo man bearing the title Eze Chukudi Ihenetu. I hope I'm saying it right. He has the title Eze in the Igbo Ghana, which translates King of Igbo people in Ghana. His tribesmen in Ghana crowned him this position and the title in 2012. And these are his images, ladies and gentlemen. A very fine gentleman whom we are told is married to a Ghanaian. And as a typical Ghanaian, ladies and gentlemen, I have no problem with that at all. But many people, including myself, will have a problem with anyone or any situation that has the potential to undermine our sovereignty as a republic. What has made our country livable for all people for many years is our hospitality towards one another and to foreigners, ladies and gentlemen. And that cannot be circumvented by any external tribe nor group of people. Ghana has a common chieftaincy practice of installing foreigners as development chiefs for the purpose of providing value to our local communities. This is a typical thing in Ghana. And hence, I thought what this man and his tribesmen were doing was something in line of that. Until, ladies and gentlemen, I read from an internet publication that they, and I mean the Igbo people, or he as a king in Ghana, has acquired acres of lands to build an Igbo town and establish an Igbo kingdom within Ghana. This is where I became disturbed, even though I'm yet to see any substantive evidence for this acquisition. That would be totally unacceptable, ladies and gentlemen. Fellow Ghanaians, I want to believe this is a falsified story. But if not, This is not something we should entertain or allow to continue. Ghana is a sovereign country alongside our kings and our chiefs. They are called kings and chiefs for historical reasons. They have fought and protected their lands and been the source of the unity of our people till this modern era. It is not a title given out of charity, ladies and gentlemen. There is a meaning and a story behind every stool or throne in Ghana. There is a story behind every stool, land, and family lineage that authenticates the royalty of our kings and chiefs. These institutions are not to be toyed with, nor replicated in any shape or form, ladies and gentlemen. People have fought and died in the protection of their clans and tribes and lands in Ghana. It used to be our system of governance before the colonizers came in, and therefore should be respected whether by foreigners or locals, ladies and gentlemen. What is happening with this self-acclaimed king of Igbos in Ghana, if true, will be a direct infringement on our chieftaincy structure and the sovereignty of our country as a whole. This cannot happen in any other region outside of Accra, and even in Nigeria. Can this even happen in Ashanti region, ladies and gentlemen, or any of the northern regions? In fact, this shouldn't happen in any other country, and shouldn't happen for that matter in Ghana. The Igbo people of Biafra need a king and true leadership in these times of struggle for an Igbo nation. That cannot be done in a strange land. What this man is trying to do in Ghana will undermine his own people's effort for freedom from Nigeria. And I don't think his intention is to create a kingdom here in Ghana and move his people along. If he indeed has the resources and the know-how to lead his people, this is the time to stand up strong for your people in Abia and Anambra and Ebonyi and Enugu and in Imo states in Nigeria. Biafra is at crossroads with the federal government of Nigeria, and we as Ghanaians don't want to meddle in that. To be crowned a king is not simply by an election. It must be tied to the lineage of your family, the land of your tribe or family, the historical achievements or significance of your family name in relation to the community you lead, ladies and gentlemen. You don't just blip on the radar in a community that has its own leadership structure and annex your throne to theirs, ladies and gentlemen. That is not how it's done, and doesn't make you a king nor a leader. And one reason we have to make this topical is because of how politicians relate with them. During the times of the formal government or the president, this man was seen, invited, and associated with the leadership of our country. And before the elections were held last year, he paid a visit to our current president. This is what he has used to gain for himself the popularity and the needed attention, ladies and gentlemen. But that's definitely not what Ghana needs at this time. We are not in need of more kings and chiefs, ladies and gentlemen. We have a diplomatic relationship with Nigeria, and that should be observed. The idea of our immigration officers inviting him and working with him is not going to be a healthy thing for Ghana and Nigeria's relationship in the long run. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to pay attention to all these. Nigeria has a high commissioner in Ghana. He is the representation of Nigerian government in Ghana. He is the one to be consulted or engaged on whatever the issues may be. Ladies and gentlemen, we the people of Ghana must be vigilant with the happenings in our country. We have come a long way with our differences, and that shouldn't be undermined under any circumstance. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome people from every part of Africa and the world to our country, because that is who we are as a people. We are inherently peaceful people who just want to go about our business and live in peace with all men. We have what many African countries never had. We are one of the few African countries that has never experienced a civil war since independence, and we've had a stable democracy in the last 33 years. We have successfully seen the transition of political powers in that time frame, ladies and gentlemen, and we cannot be naive of the threats to these achievements. There is absolutely no need nor room for an Igbo king of Ghana or Yoruba king of Ghana or any sort of king on our land. How does it even work, ladies and gentlemen? Does it mean we will have to resort to him when an Igbo person is at loggerheads with our laws or not. That cannot be, because no Nigerian travels to Ghana or to any country on a passport issued by an Igbo state. It is Nigeria we deal with, and should remain so until there is a country called Igbo. Nigeria is a friend and a strategic partner of Ghana, and that is how far it should go. A similar thing was happening in the Adan area in the Greater Accra region, when a group of Lebanese people bought lands and wanted to build a Lebanese community that will prohibit Ghanaians from accessing it, ladies and gentlemen. They likewise wanted a town and a system for themselves.